Welcome to another episode of the Get Out Swim podcast. I'm your host, Seamus T. Quinn, and today I'm joined by head coach of men's and women's swimming at Williams College. This is Steve Kuster. So, Steve, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
You've had a ton of success at Williams. Obviously, I think when you assumed kind of the role as head coach, it seemed like Williams had already kind of established a reputation of being kind of like a top level school, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but then you kind of took it to new heights when you took over as head coach. And so I guess I just want to know more about your background. So tell me about, your background in the sport of swimming as a swimmer yourself, and then how you got into coaching and who some of those early mentors for you were kind of growing up.
Yeah. So, I don't know how far back you want to go, but I'll tell you, I probably started taking lessons when I was 4 or 5, maybe. And there was a day where I wasn't feeling it. I don't know if I was sick or said I was sick or whatever. My mom was like, "No, we're going." She said, "You don't have to get in if you don't want to, but we're going." So there I was. I don't remember this. I just know the story. And I didn't want to get in for whatever reason. And the instructor at the time picked me up and threw me in. And I think I lost it. I think I freaked out. I think we left and never went back. I can't really see that type of thing happening these days. But either way, so I guess I got that guy to thank for my swimming career and sort of everything that happened since. I wouldn't go near the water after that. I don't think I mean, nowhere near the water. I joined a summer club when I was 7. I wasn't going to swim. All my buddies were swimming. I told the coach, yeah, no chance. He finally convinced me. I'm like, all right, I'm not putting my face in the water. No chance. Not at all. So I only swam backstroke. I guess at the end of that year, he's like, "Hey, you're pretty good." I don't know if I won something or whatever, but he was like, "You ever think about doing this more?" And sort of that kind of launched my swimming from there. So it was a really rocky start, I think. But yeah, after that, I had a few club coaches when I was younger who I looked up to, not in like I want to be you type of way, but in there, they were cool, they were young, they made practice fun. And I just kind of, kept at it, kept going, kept enjoying it, had some success. So that always helps. But I think probably in terms of my swimming, Tim Murphy, who coached at the Wilton Y for a lot of years before Harvard, before Penn State, was a pretty big influence both on my swimming and on my coaching. So I finished my swimming career swimming for him, and I started my coaching career coaching with him, which is kind of a cool connection. So, I mean, that's a little bit obviously I could spend hours on the background, but that's a little bit of it. I went to Penn. I majored in European history. Right out of college, I went to Fidelity Investments in Boston as like an intern. I mean, those two things don't really go. European history major and Fidelity Investments don't really mesh all that well. But I thought it was a cool opportunity. I stayed in touch with coaching, working with the club team at Harvard for one of those 2 years. And by the end, I was just like, you know what? I'm not adding value to anybody's life here, and I'm not adding value to my own life, and I need to get out before whatever, I'm too entrenched, or I just feel like I'm too old to make a switch or whatever. So, that's when I went back. I got a job back at the Wilton Y with Tim Murphy, coaching their senior 2 team and helping him coach the senior group. And that kind of started it all. So,
Nice.
Yeah, very, very thankful that things kind of fell the way they did.
With being around Tim, what were aspects of his coaching or just him as a person that you liked or you kind of noticed and were I like this kind of.
Yeah, as a swimmer, I mean, I can still remember back when I first joined his team, I was just petrified of him. I got kicked out within the first, I don't even know, week, 2 weeks of being on that team. And I just was like, oh my God. That's a great story, but probably for a different time. So, I mean, his obviously we all sort of change a little bit as we get older and whatever, but back in the day, I mean, just his passion, his enthusiasm. He was a fiery guy. You couldn't go through a practice with him and not appreciate how into it he was. And more so than any coach that I had during my career. I mean, he was the guy who, like, I wanted to perform for him, right? Like, he could probably, just by not saying anything or by not being impressed with what I was doing or whatever, he could always get that little bit extra out of me. And I feel like that's not something I came across a lot in my swimming career.
Yeah, definitely.
I know. So, yeah, that was a big part.
For sure. No, I know the feeling you're describing of just having a coach where the amount of investment and like passion that they show, that in turn makes you want to just like show up for them, not only for yourself, but show up for them.
Yeah.
That's a mark of a good coach for sure. Now at Penn, you kind of, kept going on a great trajectory there. I mean, just looking at some stats, it looked like you were, longtime record holder in the butterfly events. And then you ended up kind of going to the Olympic trials and placing in the top 16 in the country. So obviously you had just like a ton of success as a swimmer collegiately, and then, kind of going for the Olympic trials in long course swimming and butterfly. So I guess, like, what do you attribute that to? You think, like, thinking back at your time at Penn and just like, what worked well kind of there?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was a really motivated swimmer. I don't know. I know enough now to know that I can look back at myself and probably not be the best judge of if I say I was hardworking, if I say I was, I think I probably was in a lot of ways. And I think there's no doubt that different people could have gotten more out of me or in a different setting or, whatever. In between my junior and senior year in college, I took the year off to train for Olympic trials. And I kind of had a big decision whether I was going to stay at school. Not because, let me just clarify, not because I thought I had a chance at making the team, but mostly just because I really just wanted to see what I could be, how good I could be if I really focused on it. What could I do? I didn't want to have any sort of what if questions. So that kind of immediately eliminated school. I didn't want to be in school and try to do that at the same time. So I was either go home, train at the Wilton Y, or I guess I was considering one or two other places where I would be training with older kids who were faster, or we're going to push me in a different way. And I just, I felt like Wilton was the right place for that. And Tim, most importantly, Tim was the right person. So yeah, I mean, I guess I really love the sport. I love the challenge. I liked working hard. I was kind of hungry for more success, and it didn't always work out like that. But I think that's what brought me to where I was. It definitely was. I had some ability, but I didn't have enough to just get by.
Do you think as a swimmer, I mean, you said I can sense that you were like you were a hard worker. Like, you were just someone who could just embrace the hard work, kind of been coached under Tim, and then just also just like within your kind of like own self-motivation and willingness to just be better. But would you consider yourself, like, thinking back, like when you were competing, like, were you someone who was just like a gamer who could just like get up on the blocks, kind of like rise to big moments, and it didn't really affect you as much? Or was it something where you kind of had the mental side of just navigating, certain anxieties or pressures? And
yeah, that's a good question. Again, so how I like to think of myself and how maybe I actually was, or potentially two different things. But yeah, I definitely think I was a gamer. I loved racing. I loved anchoring relays, being sort of in those spots. I think at the same time, though, I mean, I can think of, one of my worst swimming memories from college was my senior year. I lost 3 events at Ivy's by a combined 0.27. Like, so you like to think of yourself as a gamer and a racer, but there's an instance where I just didn't get it done. Right. Like, right. So, but yeah, I enjoyed racing. I liked scoring points for the team. I think I had a good racing mentality, sort of like, if you're going to beat me, you're going to have to do something really good. Obviously, maybe not at that meet, but sort of at a lot of meets. So
for sure. Yeah, you had the competitive edge for sure. Cool. So all right, so you start coaching at Harvard. You realize this is something that could really work. Coaching with Tim as well at Wilton Y, and then eventually you segue towards the head coaching position at Williams. So how did that transpire as far as like, kind of going the Division III route and deciding to coach, take the head coaching position at Williams, a college again that had established a great reputation. I mean, Williams is known, I would say nationally, probably, worldwide, maybe not worldwide, but nationally as like a great, almost like mini Ivy League at sorts. It's got a really rich history, aside from just the athletics there. But yeah, how did that all kind of transpire?
Yeah, so I was at Harvard for 2 years. My boss at the time, Mike Chasson, decided that he was going to take the Arizona State job. He offered for me to go with him, and I was sort of like, "Whoa, that's a big move." Also, I don't know how far into it, but I had been dating my now current wife of coming up on 25 years. I think that was part of it. And I was like, you know what, you're leaving. I was young. I probably thought more of myself than I needed to. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to apply for your job. So, and he's like, okay, that's great. That's fine. Good luck. It's like kind of an hour and everything. Fine. So I applied for the job. Thankfully didn't get it, to be quite honest with you. I just think, I don't know, maybe I'd have figured it out, but it also could have been a total disaster. So that's when Tim Murphy got the job. Obviously the same Tim from the Wilton Y, which I think probably in the moment I was really excited about. We had a really tough year, and I think he would, if he were on the podcast on the other screen, I think he would agree with that. I was young. I probably thought, like I said, a good amount of myself in terms of the job I could do. I had some confidence. I wanted to play a pretty big role. I either wanted to be the head of the club program, the senior group, or have my own group within the college team or something like that. And he was coming in, first time ever college coach, unbelievable success at the club level. And that wasn't going to happen, and his family was still down in Connecticut. It was just, it was not a great situation, I think, for anybody. So I think it was 3 years there, that experience with Tim, and sort of me thinking, all right, I really like this. I like coaching, but I got to figure out if I like coaching if I'm the one who's in charge. I think there's a difference. So for me, I was like, I got to go get some head coaching experience. I got to figure out if I like it. I don't remember. I think somebody who's working the Harvard swim camp mentioned that Williams was looking for a new coach, and I was like, okay, great. I think I knew where Williams was. I'd been to a meet there before. I had some family sort of who had lived in the area. So my former boss, Mike Chasson, was like, well, if you're going anywhere, if you want to be D1, there's very few places in Division III that I would send you or I would encourage you to go to. That's one of them. I was like, great. So I interviewed, got the job. I was got the job in August, set to be married in October.
Wow.
Was like, hey, do you want to go to Williamstown? So brought my wife up there, or my fiance at the time up there. And she was kind of like, okay, is there like a grocery store anywhere in town? And so we found the like Stop and Shop nearby, the Super Stop, whatever. And she's like, okay, like fine, I can do this. Which is great. Like, so it was great. So that started. I mean, I think for sure in my mind, and I'm sure I said this to my wife, like it's like 3 to 5 years. I think I was thinking 3 to 5 years, I'm going to want to get back to D1. And that's kind of how I started.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting to hear. Like at the moment, because you're coming from the Division I sort of background and thinking like that's probably the path you want to be on, and then this Division III school pops up, and it's like, okay, this could be a good opportunity. 3 to 5 years, it's like the rest is history. So I'm curious, like what in those let's go for your early years at Williams here. Like, what were some moments / learning experiences that you just kind of like started to experience / realize early on in that coaching career at Williams? Because I know you mentioned like you're taken over from just sort of a legend and a combined sort of like team that has built a reputation of success. So what were some of those early years and just like formative experiences like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was 29. I'd never coached women before. I think I had no clue, honestly, what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So that the whole thing was just the first couple of years, I'm sure I learned a ton. I mean, I think it was all sort of learning for me, but if I remember anything I learned, I'd be amazed, because I just had my head in the sand. I was just trying to get by.
Right.
But yeah, I think my time with Mike and Tim at Harvard was really, really informative in terms of things that I learned. Mike was kind of meticulous and mellow, definitely demanding. Got good results, coached in a pretty mellow kind of way. Like he was mostly a sitter. Tim, fiery, passionate, like kind of lets you know what he thinks, kind of coach. Maybe not as organized, at least early on in his time at Harvard. So I think those were two really good contrasting styles for me. I think I learned a lot of what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. Tim would always, I wrote this sort of in my notes. Tim would always, and it sticks with me because I had no clue what he was talking about, but he would always say, it's not about you, not to me, but like in general, this sport, coaching, whatever. It's not about you. And I guess I was like, well, I guess I was trying to figure out what it looks like when it is about you as a coach. And over the years, I've definitely seen a little bit of what he was referencing, and I can feel on a rare occasion, hopefully rare occasion, if I'm allowing myself to make it about myself. And I've seen coaches sort of run into trouble when it becomes about them. So that was one thing I learned. I feel like I'm still kind of chasing that, like, okay, what exactly is this? At Williams, I don't know. I think one of the biggest things I had to figure out early on, I didn't love the culture that I heard about or was hearing about when, not so much the swimming, the winning, like great, like all that stuff, but the culture in general. I mean, Coach Samuelson was an unbelievable coach, was there for years. I think he was there for 30 something years. He was old school, right? Like I think as best I can put it, I think a lot of team members on both sides were as proud of their social prowess and partying prowess as they were sort of their swimming and diving prowess. And that was something that just didn't really fit for me or with me. I knew enough. I didn't really know what I was going to be all about, but I knew enough to know that, okay, I can't coach like this. I'm not going to do that. But I decided early on that it wasn't going to be a clean house thing, like my way or the highway. And I think that's been a consistent theme for me in some ways. I didn't just clean house. I didn't say, hey, we're going dry. I didn't do any of that stuff. I kind of, over probably 3 to 5 years, right, just kind of slowly instilled how I wanted it to go and how I wanted it to be. And I think in the short run, for those first couple of years, it made that time a little bit more palatable, both for the kids who were swimming and diving for me and for myself. I mean, there were certainly some moments that have been etched in my mind where I'm like, oh my God, like I can't do this, but this is how I decided to do it. And so that was kind of a big deal. And I think just knowing, I mean, there are absolutely things you cannot do on my program, or I will not allow it. So it's not to say there aren't rules or there aren't, I think everybody knows that I'm in charge, but more to say, like, I'm not a guy who thinks that I know it all. As a matter of fact, like, I know I don't know it all. And so that sort of, I think that guides how I coach, right? I like to hear some feedback. I like to get some input from people. I sort of that's just kind of how I go about it. And I think that has been one thing that I think I established early on that has stuck with me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to bring up the culture piece, because even though Williams, has, again, that history of winning, they're winning. Like that's a great thing. You see that objectively, show up and you're like, wow, like that's the best team. Like they must be doing something right. They must be, cultivating a culture that's healthy, that's, whatever. And not to discredit any of that, but it's like, from what I'm hearing, it's like, well, there's still work that needs to be done when you start to see kind of the behind the scenes, like the peek behind the curtain of what the other side of life looks like for these athletes. So I don't know, what were maybe some things that you tried to implement, or even just like how, basically my question is like, how do you shift that? How do you like come in and just, as a 29-year-old, not trying to like be like my way or the highway, change everything right off the bat, but then how do you kind of just like start to make the shift where it's like, okay, this is what I'm looking for?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. One of the first things I felt like I had to do was, and this isn't painting maybe it's not painting a great picture. It's not intended to paint a bad picture, but like for me, getting the kids to be accountable for showing up to practice. Like it wasn't going to be, you're not going to show up. If you're not going to show up, I'm for sure going to know why. You're going to let me know why. So like I started off, and I'm sure I wasn't militant about it, but I like took attendance. I wanted to know who was there. I wanted to know, those were some things that I thought I had to change the mentality of a little bit. I can specifically remember sort of one other thing. One of the, I don't know, sophomores or juniors at the time was telling me about his experience at the most recent conference meeting. He was like, yeah, and people hate us and people they boo us and stuff. And I'm like, that's awful. Like, why is that? When and why is that ever good or fun or whatever? I said, I think in that moment, and we've kind of done this, right? Like so I want people to hate us because we're good and we're really good people and we do it the right way. And they hate us because they can't hate us, right? Like I don't need to be the villain. I don't want to be the villain. I want to be really, really good. And I want to be like, that's the team you want to be like. So I think that was another sort of switch. In my mind, I don't think it would, in my mind, it wasn't major. It's just like, yeah, be good people, be good sports, like sport one, be excited about the sport. Don't, and the other big one was, our training trip was just like it was like a party when I first, not for me, but I think it was, it was awful for me. But it was just, that's what they did. Training trip was about, yes, they swam a bunch and they dove a bunch, but they drank a ton. I can remember vividly my first training trip, New Year's Eve. We took over this really small hotel in Fort Lauderdale. There were like 8 people in the room, like whatever. It was crazy. My wife came down, I think, and maybe she wasn't there. I can't remember, but I was laying in bed. I'm like, oh my God, this is a disaster. I could hear on one side of me, there was a room of a bunch of people like playing quarters. And on the other side of me, there was a room with a bunch of people playing like thumper. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. Like, so that's what I mean. Like, okay, fine. That's a decision I made. I wasn't getting rid of things. I had to live with that. I think we moved out of that hotel probably 2 or 3 years later. And that was sort of a big move in like, hey, we can't be animals. We're going to be with other people. We have to respect this place. I think those are a few of the things that really sort of started to change it. But it was, it takes time.
For sure. Yeah. It's interesting you bringing up this, like, kind of what you heard that swimmers sort of say about, oh, this is what kind of teams think about us. People think about us, or this is kind of like our, other people's perception of us. But I think it's interesting because like I was at, my younger siblings both either swam or swim currently for Connecticut College in the NESCAC. And so my younger sister, I went to go watch the Conn versus Williams dual meet this year at Conn in January. And there's just something like, there's a presence about your team. So it's like you guys, do it the right way, in the sense where everyone's up, everyone's cheering, you know, you're in uniform. So there's that, like, you know, kind of just look that, okay, this team there's a togetherness about the team. And it's like, there's not just the men and the women, they're kind of combined in it for each other. And then, you know, you don't sit down, you're kind of pacing the deck, you know, the coaches are up. So there's, I think, all these pieces that make, you know, not only the winning kind of impactful, but then also like that cultural side of like, okay, everyone's in it for, it's not about you, it's about like we kind of thing. And I think that just leaves an impression. And then when you're the team who always has the target on their back, it's like, I think that perception just sometimes is like other teams just trying to get, you know, get to you, or like get them to just like, I don't know, rise to the top, whatever it is to motivate themselves. But I do think there is a presence. Like, I do think there is a presence about Williams, about the team that you've developed. I think you can see it when you're from a spectator point of view, or even maybe when you're on the opposite side of the pool from you. So there's definitely something there. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think I want it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I want to have an edge. I want kids to be fierce competitors, but you can be that and be really good people, and be really good sports, and appreciate winning and losing, or seeing a great race, or whatever, right? Like, so I think that's the balance. I don't ever want to just be good people, to be quite honest with you. Like, it's great, but I'm in the business of coaching and getting faster and hopefully impacting lives and winning and whatever. So sure. you gotta sort of have both.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this leads me to my next question. Like, it's kind of a two-parter, but I guess, and you did touch on it already. But like, how would you describe like your leadership style as a coach? And then the second part is like, how do you address or motivate your team, your athletes, leading into each season, and championship season, with again, that target on your back from the previous year? I mean, I'm sure you'll encounter it going into this season. Like, your team's just won both the NESCAC championship on the men's and women's side, something that you're familiar with from your years at Williams. But you know, there's teams always looming, like Tufts, like Amherst, like, you know, it's a competitive conference.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know, my leadership, I thought about this when you sent the question, which is super helpful, but like, it's not really a thing, but I think I'm a gatherer is how I would describe it. I'm not like a consensus builder. I'm not worried about building consensus per se, but I do want to hear other people's thoughts. So I seek out input. You can ask my assistants, Coach Alley, who's fantastic, has been with me for 6 years now. I mean, I ask everything. Most every decision, there's either been a question involved or she's been involved in the process. And that's just how I like to do it. I feel like it's cumbersome at times, but it's also, that's how I feel like I'm fully informed. And then I can decide how I feel, how different thoughts make me feel. And then I move forward with what I think is right and is best. And sometimes maybe it's somebody else's idea. I have no problem with that. And a lot of times it's an idea that I form based on what I've heard from other people. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I want to make sure whatever, there isn't something great out there that I have not even considered, just because of whatever the sort of lane that I'm in all the time. So I guess, I don't know if that's an inclusive leader or a whatever, but
do you think you were always like that, like even early on, just kind of seeking that input from coaches, or did that sort of develop over time?
I mean, that's a really good question. I hadn't thought of that until this second. I mean, I always liked input as an athlete, like not necessarily like stroke tweaks here and there or whatever, but I wanted feedback. And I also always wanted feedback from the clock. Like, and I'd get frustrated if something wasn't going the way I wanted to, or whatever. So yeah, who knows? Maybe that's a part of it. I think I just think I just never. I think I know a lot, but maybe it was from starting at a young age and maybe even being somewhere where I wasn't ready to be, where I felt like, all right, what else do I need to know? I mean, I had for 10 years, I had one part-time assistant aside from a diving coach. So it was 60 people plus, some years over 70 people, just myself, one part-time assistant who had some swimming background, but also played football. There was not a lot of, I wasn't getting a lot of, I love Dave. I wasn't getting a lot of feedback where I was like, yep, that's really, really helpful.
Right.
So maybe more stem from that. Maybe it stemmed from now that I have people around that I can get feedback from, or, finding the kids on the team who you knew were super into it with really good heads on their shoulders, who wouldn't mind giving me feedback or wouldn't mind talking about a lineup or a conference team decision or a relay or whatever. But that's, I don't know. Don't make me think too deep, man.
Then so the second part is, how do you address a team? Like, look, we got to kind of refocus.
Right. So we've touched on this a little bit. I mean, for one, I know everybody sort of considers, or most people that I hear from consider swimming like an individual sport, which is totally fine. And yeah, rarely, nobody really gets up on the block with you. Nobody's in the lane with you. And I get that, but we coach this team very much like it's a team sport. And so that's, I'm going to ask you to, when you walk through the door to practice, I'm going to ask you to figure out how you can make your teammates better. And in my mind, if you're doing the things that are going to help make your teammates better, you're almost always doing the things that you need to make yourself better. And that's just kind of, again, that's sort of over the years. It's a big team. It's a combined team. Like that's the only way it makes sense to me. I don't want a women's team and a men's team who don't talk, who don't get along, who don't support one another. I don't want, people who don't like teammates because that teammate got a spot on the relay. So we focus on that every year, though. I love winning. I'm very competitive. I think I'm competitive in a good way. Like, I'm not throwing chairs like Bobby Knight or whatever, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about winning. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about culture. I feel like if we create the right culture and work hard to create a great experience for people, and we combine that with working hard, that success is going to come. Individual success, great dives, great swims, best times, winning meets, like that stuff's going to come. So that's something that I think I've formed. I'm pretty set on now. It took years to get there, but so that's the stuff that we talk about. That's, we don't talk about, hey, yeah, so-and-so, and we won by this much. And we don't talk a lot about that. I think that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because that doesn't need to be our focus. There's way bigger things I feel like that we need to focus on. Maybe it's a bad thing because I also think baked in there is that sort of expectation that we're going to win. Not expectation, not like we're Williams, we're going to win, but that's been our tradition. That's what people expect to do when they come through the door. Hopefully they're competitive. Hopefully that's what they want to do. So it doesn't need to be spoken about a whole lot, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think occasionally we'll take it for granted, which is the bad part of that. And I feel like in the middle of my career, maybe in the 2000 teens or whatever, we had some exceptional women's teams, and you can get complacent. The first time we lost a conference meet in my time on the women's side was to Amherst in a year where my senior class was lights out good. And I think they swam unbelievably well. It was a bit of a surprise. That's one thing I also really strive not to do, is ever be surprised by another team or by a situation again. But I think we had a senior class that was really good, but also very focused on them making NCAAs, sort of individuals. We never really formed that really good team, like we're doing this for each other thing. I think we took it for granted. I think all those things. And I was like, oh man, this is not going to work out. So that was a pretty humbling experience.
Yeah. And I wonder too, if because there's the reputation of winning. There's a tradition of winning, and not like just to get away from the word winning, but just, like kind of being that premier team, sort of like in the conference, right? And then setting yourself up for nationals, but sort of, again, having that target on your back as that team. Like, I wonder, like, is that something, like you said, humbling? Like, it's almost like a good reset maybe for the team to be like, hey, like, we can lose. Like, it's not like we're winning every single time every year. I feel like that could almost be like a good reset in a way. Not that you want that to happen every year for a reset, but it's like,
No, I do think I do. I mean, yeah, and let's be clear, I haven't won a national title yet, and there are lots of teams who are winning repeat national titles and whatever else, right? I do not have a gold trophy, so we're talking conference level, but yeah, I think in the moment for my women's team, that was probably the best thing that could have happened. I mean, and the turn in motivation and the turn in like, we're going to do this together and this is what we're going to do was amazing. And we won, I think, the next year by potentially the most points that we've ever won by. Like, it was, and it was cool. It was great. It was great to be a part of. More recently on both sides. I mean, the conference meet is way more competitive. So I don't have that. I don't have that issue of like being surprised. I mean, we lost 2 in a row to Tufts. That's the first time in my 23 years that we'd ever lost more than 1 consecutive. And I think we've only lost 3 on the women's side and 2 on the men's side. But like, those are meets where everything matters. We're picking the right 24. We're having people all on at the same time. I mean, that's partly what makes those meets so exciting now.
Oh my God. Yeah. Thrilling to be it for sure. So you talked about having not won a national championship up to this point. Is that still a goal, or is that even a goal that you've had just like as a coach, talking about like this is, your program here, like, is that a goal, or is it something that if it happens, it happens?
It's definitely, I'll state it as a goal for sure. But I think it's like one of those, you're reaching for the stars, maybe you get the moon, whatever that saying is. I don't know if it's doable.
What's the closest a team has gotten to that point?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We've been second a couple of times on the women's side. Okay. On the men's side, 3rd or 4th. The women, though, this year we were 4th. But I think we were the closest we've ever been points wise to winning. I think we were 70 or 80, and our top breaststroker, who was the top seed in the 200, didn't get to swim that. So we would have, would have been within 75 points or so, which is really not that close, to be quite honest with you. And even some of those years when we were second, it was, I needed 3 more Logan Todd Hunters or Caroline Wilsons to be in the conversation, right? So, I don't know. I don't know if admissions doesn't make it any easier at Williams, which is totally fine. It's just a fact. So I'm definitely not saying no. I'm always going to have it as a goal. I'm not going to, if when I'm done with all this and if it hasn't happened, I'm not going to feel like,
left something.
I failed on that front. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the recruiting, in a sense as, I feel like a lot of these NESCAC schools, Williams, certainly, they're pretty self-selecting schools. Like, you're not going to have to kind of cast this huge wide net like you might at like a mid-major Division I or a school that's a state school. Like, these schools are extremely hard to get into. They're very, again, self-selecting, I think. And so how do you just kind of go about like finding the right fit for Williams, like finding the right person at the end of the day, taking in times, taking in everything, not just times, obviously, or not just diving scores, but like, how do you kind of make that decision to be like, all right, this is our person?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think as I've sort of honed my sort of idea of what I want culture to be and how to build it over the years, it's also spoken a lot to my recruiting. I mean, in our sport, at least for me, maybe I'm the only coach that's like this, but man, it's so easy to be blinded by times. And I've done that a few times back in my career and thinking like, okay, those times are what I want. That person might not be, but we'll be able to fix that. We'll be able to change that. We'll and that almost always never works out. And then sometimes is a disaster. So being willing to sort of pay a little bit more attention to the red flags that I find in the process, just being aware. I mean, one of the things I hate is that I feel like recruiting is moving earlier and earlier and earlier in terms of the process.
Yeah.
And I feel like that makes me really uneasy because, well, for one, the NESCAC in general is a sort of slightly later process, but also culture is super important. Getting to know a recruit, having them on campus, having them meet my team, all those things are really important. And there's no perfect science of finding the right person, but those are the things that I found to be sort of most indicative of helping you find the right person. So, if we're in order to stay competitive, if we're having to commit to recruits earlier and earlier and earlier, I feel like that's one thing I really worry about losing in the process. So, yeah, I mean, I think talking to club coaches, although, I love club coaches, but I've met very few club coaches who will tell me if there's a problem with a kid. So there are a few that I trust and that I definitely take their word exactly as they say it. And there are a bunch that I'm like, yeah, great. Thank you. I'm glad to hear the person's not an awful person. I'm not a big prognosticator. So when somebody tells me this 142, $250 is going to go 136, I'm like, great. Why haven't they done it yet? Whatever. Like, so
Sure.
I just try to be as thorough as I can. I mean, we ask some goofy questions too along the way. Like, I want to know about you completely outside of swimming and school and whatever else. So those are a few of the ways I guess we try to get to the right person.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And then how on the back end, like moving forward, like how special is it to see, sort of like it work out, or at least, okay, things are moving in the right way, like someone, and I'm thinking of, probably names on your team who have kind of rose to the top as far as like national champions, conference champions, like someone like, Jamie Levette or Sophia Verclear, and, most recently, like how kind of rewarding is it to see like, your relationship coach and athlete, and then also just like their trajectory just kind of keep on going up as they go through year by year.
Yeah. So I think one of the things I don't think to my own horn very often. I think one of the things I think I do really well is we've got a big team. And if you're on the team, like I care, right? Like I care if you're trying to break a minute in the 100 breaststroke for the first time on the guy's side, great. Like that's a meaningful goal. We're going to work on that. I'm going to care as much as I care about Jamie when his 200 freestyle or, when he went 135. And I think that's super important to building that culture and to building a team that also cares about one another. There isn't anybody who's sort of cared more for or more important. Everybody's got a role, like all that stuff. So yeah, it doesn't matter who the person is. Seeing Jamie, swim what I thought was almost the perfect race, if not the perfect race at NESCAC when he broke the national record, was unbelievable. Same with our people who've won national titles, but I can still remember, and I just recently had some email exchanges with him, this walk-on on our team who was just years ago, but who was a great addition. And our goal was for him to break a minute in 100 freestyle. And when he did, and like looked over with the biggest smile on his face, so much excitement, the team going crazy, I'm like, I will never, ever forget that. And I can think of a few others like that. So those things, when it works out, regardless of what it is, those are by far the best feelings ever. And it doesn't have to be at the biggest stage or the fastest person or anything like that. I think, I've seen all kinds of people go through perseverance and overcome those things, whether it just be to get back into the sport or whether it be to find the love again, or man, those things are awesome. I think that's what keeps me in this sport and really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was, I don't know if I answered the question, but
No, I think that's good. Why do you, as a coach, like, I don't know if this is still sort of the case, but it seems like Williams has always had sort of a bigger team, like a bigger, sort of like you keep, a lot of bodies on the team, not just the top 24 that are going to score. So kind of what's the thought behind that? Like having, just a bigger team, both sides.
I mean, I think I inherited a pretty big team when I first started. And yeah, I mean, we've had, I think one year we had 78, right? Like, I mean, Tufts has a very big team, so Adam knows what this is like, but it's getting harder and harder and harder, quite honestly, with admissions to keep having a big team. I think there were probably more walk-on type swimmers earlier in my career than there have been of late, just by way of, how admissions works and sort of all that. But yeah, I mean, I like having a big team. There are times where it's certainly way easier if you don't, right? Like, I mean, I think the way to get somebody to go fast is to coach them in a group of 2 or 3 people and constantly, like that's the secret sauce of which we'll never be able to do that. But I mean, if we can bring 24 to our conference meet, something always happens. One of the years we lost on the men's side, we brought 22 guys, I think. One had just had surgery and was only swimming 2 events. Like, so there's something to be said about having a strong 24. And within that, I don't think you can have 24 and have a super strong 24. You can, but everybody's got to stay healthy. Nobody can get into it. Nobody can decide it's not something they want to do anymore. So I think that sort of 28 to 30 is kind of right in that sweet spot of that range. And yeah, when it's all going well, we have a lot of kids who could score at NESCACs who end up finishing their season at the mid-invite. And that's not a horrible situation to be in. It's maybe not their ideal, but it's not a horrible situation to be in. So I guess that's the size piece.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Now going back, I realized I wanted to expand on this, but like throughout your career, what would you say are some of the most like memorable races, moments, meets that you can think back on that just you have been a part of, that you've presided over? It could be anything.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had kept a journal or something. My memory isn't outstanding, and I've been doing it for so long that I'm sure I forget almost as much as I remember. But I mean, just so I love winning. You mentioned national titles and things like that. Like that's those are always memorable. We've had at least one national title winner in 21 consecutive years, which is
wow.
Really sweet. I mean, I love that. It's not all about that, but I think it's really cool. This year we won the women's 400 medley relay by 100th of a second, and had the race been an inch longer, we probably wouldn't have. I won't forget that for a long time. We won the men's 800 free relay, which was also super exciting. That was one of those. My men's team wasn't having the best meet in the world, and that was one of those races where, all 4 of those guys did exactly what they needed to do. So that was a great experience. We won an 800 free relay on the women's side once from lane 1. Like, we were out, nobody saw us, nobody was even talking about us. Like, that was very memorable. We've had some unreal dual meets. I mean, the Amherst meet is I'm excited you're gonna get to experience it. It's especially back in the day, probably my first 10 to 15 years, like, the atmosphere is unreal. The meets were really, really competitive. I mean, we lost a couple meets that I think came down to the last 25, and just bonker stuff. That those are epic, and I won't ever forget those. I think anytime I can think of a couple, maybe not the names or whatnot, and these are little, but these are kind of like the walk-on guy. Anytime where I feel like I've been questioning myself about either putting a kid on the conference team or putting a kid in relay or, they're deserving of their senior, but we should do it for that reason or whatever. And they've made me look really good, or I've done it because I'm like, this could be that feel good thing. Maybe the kids struggled for the whole meet, but if I put them on this relay or her on this relay, they're going to end in a really good way. Like, and sort of any time that those things come to fruition, I mean, I'll remember those always. What else? I mean, I think there's, on a not sort of swimming, my kids, when my kids were younger, I don't remember how old they were, but we won our men's conference meet at Williams, and my boys eventually came down on deck, and the three of us went up to the 3-meter and jumped off to, like, I don't know, I'm always going to remember that. Now you got me rolling. So we brought 5 kids to the 2016 Olympic trials.
Oh, wow.
That was amazing. I mean, these are kids who we got a waiver past a few Olympic trials before. I got to train them. We trained post-season, went to meets. A bunch of them qualified, and 5 of us went to the meet, which, I mean, yeah, that's always a goal, and it hasn't happened. We just had a couple guys miss in 2021. Had a Canadian Olympic trialist this year. No U.S. trials qualifiers, unfortunately, but that's something that I'm going to want to get back on. So those are some of the
highlights.
Sure, I've missed a ton of them, but
yeah, but good to touch on at least some. Like you said, it's a long line of coaching to like pull the memories from. There's always going to be something left out, but I think that's good for sure. Cool. All right. Well, moving along. I wanted to ask just like how you see sort of college swimming just continuing to evolve. I mean, particularly where we are both in the NESCAC and sort of within the scope of Division III. But yeah, how do you see? I mean, you've seen it sort of evolve, right, over time yourself, being in the game for a bit now and just seeing it evolve. Like, I mean, how do you see it continuing to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every year I mean, it happens at the D1 level too, but like, it can't keep getting faster, can it? Like, it can't just like it's sort of, we don't usually do like a big mid-season meet, but when I look at the times, I'm like, wow, yeah, under what moon are we getting people to this meet and enough to like have an impact at the meet and whatever? It just, I mean, it keeps getting faster and faster. And I think, I don't know, I think there's so much good stuff that happens, I'm sure, in other sports too, at the Division III level. So much really, really good coaching and performing. So I don't know if Division III is sort of overlooked, but I think it's underappreciated for sure, just in terms of the quality of coaching, of performing, and sort of the experience that I think most, well, I can't speak for most, but that a lot of the Division III programs that I'm familiar with and that I interact with the most are putting out. So I think it's sort of gained some traction over the years. I hope that really continues. We talked a little bit about the recruiting. I think it'd be great if things didn't keep sort of seeming to move. I mean, I know there's sort of checks in place, but just seems like recruiting is going to just continue to kind of ramp up. I don't know, other than those sort of couple of things. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to keep getting faster. I don't know how, but yeah, I just hope we're a part of it. I hope I can figure it out, and hope we continue to be a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's exciting. Well, I think it's one of those things too, where it's like, yeah, training has gotten better and technology maybe has allowed us to like evolve a little bit. But it's also like, I think once swimming in track, for example, like some of these sports, like once you see a barrier broken, like once, oh, someone's gone, whatever, 150 in a 2 fly, like I can break that now. Like that's possible to be broken. There's like a 4-minute mile. I think about that a lot because I think then that's when it's like you can start to like see it, year after year after year, continue to drop. It's a cool thing to be a part of, though. It's electric when you have those swims just blow your mind completely.
Yeah, for sure.
The NESCAC NESCAC especially, like I came in there my first few years and I was literally like, this is faster than my mid-major conference. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I watched, I forget, on the men's side, I remember it was like Grover versus Alexander Grand Pierre, I think his name is, but they were just going at it in the breaststroke events and popping like 53s and 100 breast and well under sub 2 in the 2 breasts. And I was just like, what meet am I at? Am I sure this is Division III? Like, like, what are we doing?
No, I mean, I've done this a bunch of times this spring. If I'm looking at a recruiter or whatever, just look back to see where they finished in the conference meet. And I'm like, oh, damn. Like our conference meet is really fast this year. Like it keeps getting faster. And it's fun to see. I mean, I love seeing other sort of programs continue to get better. That's happening at the NCAA level too. There's there's the usuals, but there's a whole nother group of programs that are sort of in the mix for bringing home a trophy, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I wanted to ask you more. I'm winding down here, but I just wanted to ask you, I heard you say a couple things, just doing my own research, but I wanted you to expand on it. Like, I think you, when talking to addressing your athletes and sort of pre-race, pre-meet, you'll tell them field doesn't matter. And so I'm curious as to kind of what that means, kind of what,
Yeah, I've had to, I mean, that's probably one of the things that I say that's gotten the most kind of like play from the kids. Oh yeah, I forgot, field isn't right. Like, so I've had to refine it a little bit. And now it's sort of like, okay, I care how you feel, but feel doesn't matter. Mostly what we say now is like, feel is a really bad indicator of what you're capable of doing. So I think what I worry about, what I see a lot is, I mean, we practice all year about getting up and doing well when the situation isn't right. You're tired. It's the end of a meet. It's the end of a practice. The better, in my mind, I feel like the better you prepare yourself and you're able to do when you're feeling like that, then come taper. I can't guarantee you that you're going to feel great, but I know you're going to be way more rested than when you did it really well in the middle of the season. So just kind of getting away from that, like it has to feel perfect in order to be really good. That's sort of where that comes from. And so, I mean, I think we all can remember, even somebody as old as I am, like moments where it felt great and it actually wasn't great for whatever reason, or you felt like crap, you maybe even were sick, or it was in the middle of a season and you pop off something unbelievable, right? Like, so to me, just, it's super simple. It's just, I mean, I'm a pretty simple guy for the most part. So it's just one of those, like, feel bad doesn't mean it's going bad. Feel good doesn't mean it's going to go well. And I think sometimes, especially the kids that I tend to work with who like to be cerebral in a lot of parts of their lives, just sort of making that simple connection that, everything doesn't have to align in order for this to go really, really well. And I see it all the time. I mean, all the time. One of our breaststrokers this year was just, I mean, and frequently, I mean, you previously mentioned it was crap all the way up into the end. And then he would get up, like, I'm sure before that meet you were referencing, he probably couldn't hit pace for like 4 weeks before he shaved and went, and then whatever, went 156 and 200 breaststroke, whatever, right? Like just trying to get them to appreciate that taper and swimming fast isn't this little box that you have to be in order for it to go well.
Yeah.
Because hitting, we want to find that little box, that little dot on 3 days of the year. It's not particularly easy, right? You're trying to thread a needle. So just kind of expanding what's possible, I think, is the whole idea behind that. I get a lot of crap for that, though.
What are your thoughts? I just thought of this one. What are your thoughts on this new sort of wave of suiting up when it comes to dual meets?
Yeah. I mean, so especially in the last 5 or 6 years with some of my most recent assistants, maybe even a little bit before that. So I'm old. I'm kind of old school in a lot of ways. And I fight against that to make sure that I'm not just doing the same thing we always do for the sake of doing it. Right. that's one of those things though where I feel like I'm a little bit stuck in my old school mentality. Just in the last year or two, I'm like, okay, occasionally we'll put a suit on in practice, or we'll run a practice that's specifically meant for suits. This year we did, in between NESCACs and NCAAs, we put the cool long course for a little while, and we suited up and did a race long course, which was actually great. I thought they did really, really well. But the meets thing, I'm not coming around to that just yet. I'm sure maybe that's where we're heading, but we suit for a meet in December, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think the people at ASU, I know Conn College in the NESCAC, I know Mark suited for every meet this year, and they seem to swim pretty well. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I will be ever, but
not coming around to that just yet. But
no, probably not.
But the suits in practice and just like getting the feel for them on occasion, swimming fast, that's something you can get behind.
I think more and more, right? Like the argument makes total sense for me. And I've had a few kids be like, well, I feel different. I'm, higher in the water. I'm this, I'm that. Like, yeah, all that makes sense to me. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, well, we swam plenty fast before we started. It's just another one of those things. Yes, it makes sense. Might it help? Yeah, maybe. But will it hurt? Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not.
So,
yeah, I hear you.
Who knows?
Interesting.
I definitely have a stubborn side as well. So,
all right. Well, last question here. Are you a fan of get out swims? And if so, do you have any favorite get out swim stories, memories?
Yeah, so I do like get out swims. Again, I think it's funny. I just mentioned the old school thing because I think it's hard for me to be willing to get rid of a part of a practice, for a get out swim, to be honest. So the traditional ones I haven't done in a little while. I like doing, so we started doing this. It really wasn't, I can't really call it a get out swim, and the kids hated it, I think, because it's at the end of, it's for the most part at the end of a practice. Maybe there's 15 minutes left, 10 minutes left. Practice might even be over. And we're like, okay, great. Everybody's doing, we call it like a self-fulfilling get out swim. So you got to pick your event. Obviously, it has to be one of your better ones. And you have to pick your time. And if you're being ridiculous, I'll tell you you're being ridiculous. So you got to pick something more challenging. And if you get up and do it, you go home. And if you don't, then you do it again. And I haven't done I'm not mean-spirited enough to do like you're doing it until you get it. Yeah. But yeah, like you're going to sort of do it again. So it's a version. It fits sort of more of my, like, you're tired, you can still do things. I think almost always kids surprise themselves. Like, oh my God, like just you're capable of way more than you think you are, especially when you're tired. So we do a little bit of that. I also really like doing some more like combined things. So we've emphasized relays over the last couple of years a fair amount. So I'll grab 4 or 5 people. Sometimes it'll be like an actual relay and give them a time. Or it can be just random people. It can even be like 150 or a 225 or whatever it is. Here's your goal time. Get up. See if you can beat it. Just to kind of create some competitiveness, to focus on relays, to do some of that. A lot of times those don't have anything to do with getting out. But and then my team we're not together at practice a lot. I bet I would do it more if we always practice together. So when we're together on training trip, we'll do some version of either like a dice game that has a get out swim in it, or a get out swim, or those are sort of the times that I'm most likely to do it. Nice,
very good. Podcast quick hits is something I've been doing recently. So get away from the swim talk. I think we've had enough of that, but we'll get some fun questions in here. So if you could choose a superpower, what would it be? And why? Yeah,
kids on the team love to ask these questions, so I feel like I'm somewhat well versed. Although I'm sure there's all kinds of superpowers that I haven't even thought of. I think, my super simple answer is like teleportation. I think that would be cool. There's a lot of times, whether it be with parenting or with just life in general, where you'd love to be in 2 places, and you can't be in 2 places. Like if I could get from point A to point B, really quickly, I think that would be pretty cool. That or flying. I think flying would be not even from using it as a superpower. I think more like using it as like an escape. Just chill. I mean, I work on Long Island during the summers, and just picturing these birds who are just hanging out in the breeze, like not even flapping their wings, just over the ocean. Like, I don't know. That just seems like that would be cool.
100%. Yeah, I've been talking about teleportation a lot just because with traveling, I'm like, I just skip all that. Just get me to where I need to be.
Exactly.
If you could participate in the Olympics for another sport aside from swimming, what would it be? Summer or winter? Either.
Yeah. So I think I would want it to be like a true team sport. So I sucked at soccer as a kid. And I don't watch soccer aside from whenever the U.S. is playing, but I think soccer would be my summer, and probably for the same reason, kind of hockey would maybe be my winter. Yeah.
Nice. Good sports. What's a movie you could rewatch over and over again?
I love this one. So Remember the Titans. I watch that when it's on always. And then honestly, any good rom-com I will watch over and over. Yeah, I mean, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Love Actually, The Holiday. I don't know if The Holiday is really a rom-com or not, but I love watching that movie. Just I can watch it all the time.
Yeah, they're just fun watches.
Way too much insight into me as a person, but either way.
I think they're fun watches.
They are.
I just think they're fun. A pump up or go to.
You got one for me that I might not know that I should watch?
What was the one I was just watching one? Sometimes it's hard for me to think back, but I was just watching one on Netflix. Maybe I don't know if you have Netflix, but I was watching it the other night with my sister. It's called Hitman. It was decent. It was decent. Yeah, the premise is basically a guy who just ends up falling into the role of being the kind of like seal the deal, get these criminals to confess they're going to basically want to hire him to murder someone. And then next thing you know, he ends up meeting a girl and he's like, oh shit, got to turn this around. Anyway, it's pretty good.
I'll check it out.
A pump up. What's a pump up or go-to song either now or that you can remember from your time as a swimmer that just got you going?
Yeah. I mean, sadly, I think it's still now too. I mean, I was kind of a 80s hair band rock kind of guy for the moment. I had some difference I could do, but yeah, I mean, Kickstart My Heart, Motley Crue is always been one that like kind of instantly gets me going. There's No Easy Way Out, which is a little known song from Rocky IV, when he's driving his car into the tunnel and he knows he's got to go fight Drago or whatever. Like,
yep,
those are a couple that stand out.
Nice. Yeah, Kickstart My Heart always gets me going. And I've seen all the Rocky movies, but I can't think of that song offhand. I might have to.
It's not most people don't know. You'll have to go back and check it out. See if it
go back and check it out.
Got a good beat in the beginning. See if it does it for you. But
cool. I love it. All right. Well, Steve, thanks for hopping on. It's great to have you on here. And yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to add, now's the time.
No, I don't think so. This is fun. I mean, I don't. I always forget that getting to talk about the thing that I sort of love and am so passionate about is actually really, really fun. So I appreciate the reach out and the second reach out too. So thanks for sticking with it and asking me again. I appreciate it.